Hi, everybody.
Hi.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started because we have a hard stop with an SE board meeting at 6 right after this. So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01. And first up is the approval of the minutes that were posted in Slack.
Amy, I just saw Mr. Bucket's hand up. I'm not sure
Oh, okay.
if he needed any assistance before we get going there.
John, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Now, can everybody hear me?
We can.
Wow. I bought a new computer. I'm just getting used to it.
No worries.
Yep.
Great. Did you have a question or you just want to make sure we could hear you?
No, I would just want to make sure you could hear me.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I'll take a motion to approve the minutes that were posted in Slack, or any questions on them?
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Motion by Victoria. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor,
Aye.
you can raise your hand in the chat or
You want to count?
I see everybody raising their hand, I think. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, minutes pass unanimously. Thanks, everyone.
Lisa Eastland had an abstention just for the
I'm
minutes.
sorry.
In case you didn't see it. Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Thank you.
I have it on the full screen, so I'll help you out there.
Yeah, I only have one screen tonight, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm bouncing back and forth.
Hey,
Okay,
Amy,
so yeah.
Amy, can you let Tom Gothier in? It looks like he's posting a thing that he's in the audience.
I think Adam has to. Oh, he just switched out. Yeah.
Okay.
He should be in here in a minute. There he is.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Amy.
Hey, Tom. How are you?
I'm well. Sorry for being quasi late into the main room.
No worries. All right. Yeah, we just approved the minutes.
There for that.
Okay. And so moving on to my agenda, our agenda is the February Amherst School Board meeting update that Shannon and I attended. Shannon, do you want to give an update on that, on how that went? Great.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
So just to catch everyone up, I think everyone's pretty well versed in this group, but just a quick recap. Earlier in the month, the Amherst School Board took a resolution to carry on with a facilities project, committing to something for the March 22 ballot, similar in scope to what we've been working on. So a new elementary school and a major renovation to the middle school. So they did take a formal resolution, and part of that resolution included carrying on the work of this subcommittee. As such, Amy and I were asked to come and present and just kind of make sure that we were all up to speed and on the same page. So I thought it was a really productive meeting. We just basically kind of shared our process to date and our kind of where we had stopped with our plans to move forward with public relations. And I think that's really kind of the gist of it. Amy, did I miss anything there? Or
Yeah,
Ellen or Tom?
I think, we embedded board members onto our subcommittees.
Yeah.
I think you all saw they're on our Slack channel now. So we're really looking forward to partnering with the Amherst School Board over this next year with increased communication and, really working collectively to as we move along in the process. So any, Tom or Ellen, I don't know if you had anything to add to that?
Nope.
Yeah,
Okay.
that covers it.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Good.
that
Any
was a big one,
questions?
especially with the, I know on the agenda tonight, coming next is the cost committee. So that was one of our subcommittees that did not have an Amherst School Board representative on it. So it now has one or two, I believe. So that will be two. Yeah, thank you, Roger. Two. So that will be great as we continue to kind of refine and tighten all of that up. But I'll let Roger speak more to that.
Yeah, that's great. Any questions from anyone on that? Okay. So, actually, next up is the cost subcommittee. So Roger, if you want to bring us all up to speed on where we are with that.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So we've set up a meeting for actually next week, the 24th, from 3 to 5 p.m. to just go over the numbers again for the Wilkins and AMS proposed projects with our team. We do have two new members, Elizabeth and Terry from the Amherst School Board, which we're excited to bring you on and kind of go through the line items and get your feedback on it. So our meeting next week, I'm really looking forward, just a good discussion on the Wilkins and the AMS project with the team.
Yeah, any questions for Roger on that?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank you, Roger, for really bringing that group together so quickly and being willing to bring Amherst School Board members on there and take another look at the project to make sure that what we're looking at is the right scope for us. I think, looking at it again is not a negative thing. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think we want to, take another deep dive in and go through the line items and look at the drawings and, just make sure that, we're aligning with our goals and, really looking to balance the scope with the cost. So I know that's a really big issue moving forward. And we definitely want to take the time to, now that we have some more time, have a little more runway, we want to make sure that we get that solidified, and that will be important in our messaging also to make sure that we really have sharpened our pencils and looked at every possible way of making this as cost effective as possible. Lisa, I see your hand up. Was that from before?
Sorry, I'll put it down.
That's okay. Okay. Moving along quick.
I think Lance had a hand up there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Lance.
Just one thing associated with the cost review, although I think Roger, we're tackling this hard early on to review the cost and scope. I would note that we will be reviewing before a bond vote, a year from now, we would want to be reviewing escalation. And that is one aspect that I would encourage us to, we can begin to assess it now, but the closer we are to the bond vote, the better handle we're going to have on what the construction market has done over the extra year.
Yeah.
I know voters were generally aware, as the school board was, that time will generate cost. We had originally predicted this, I believe, at 4.5% escalation. We'll be better prepared to answer that really at the end of next summer, when we'll assess what has the escalation been to date and what are we projecting.
Yep, definitely have to take all of that into account. So time is good and time can be bad. All right. So next up is the finance subcommittee, and I'll just talk briefly about this. We do have Amherst School Board members on that committee as well. And probably not next week, but in the next few weeks, I want to set up a meeting with that group, as well as see if we can engage bond counsel to really sort of try to help us be educated on how the finance process works. And, Brian, you probably have the most knowledge on that, but I think it will be helpful for all of us to really dig and have an understanding of that ahead of time, I think it will only help us to become more educated on that early on. So Brian, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I wasn't totally listening to you because I was doing other work, so I have no idea what the hell you want to talk about.
So I want to re-engage our finance subcommittee and bring in bond counsel to really understand the process and how the timing of things and the money in and the money out. And, I know there's a lot that goes into it. So I think the sooner that we start to understand that process, the better. I think we're going to need to be able to speak to that when we engage with the public and make sure, we have folks who have a really clear understanding of the process so that we can answer questions. And
so this time I was totally focusing and listening.
Yeah.
Because I know there's been recent, John, do you have something specific?
Yes, Amy, have you talked to Joel about this subcommittee from the finance committee?
Talk to who?
Joel.
Joel
Gordon.
Oh, Gordon. Okay. On advisory finance committee?
Yeah.
I haven't. So this is more for the bond financing. So
I can probably speak for Joel as being overcommitted right now.
Okay. All right.
So I guess, Amy, my exploratory question was more about, is it the bond financing at large, or is it the bond counsel and their opinion? Because I mean, from anything I've heard up until this year, it was never a big consideration, the bond counsel. And I think what became a big issue this year was because of, the way in which voting or the opportunity to have, public meeting was going to impact a potential reversal through litigation. That was more of the concern with the bond counsel. So I don't know if we need to, dig up what are the concerns, what are the challenges that we're facing before us, and educate people on what that means. And then subsequent to that is, if we do move forward with, if there is a vote that then approves these projects, then what's the process for raising capital to then make the investments into the facilities, and what's the trickle down effect to the taxpayers? Those are two separate and distinct topics.
Yeah, gotcha.
For both, or?
Yeah, I think I was referring more to the second. I think, the first issue shouldn't really come into play next year, hopefully. So, who would you suggest could be, sort of a resident expert? Do you have that expertise to be able to walk us through how the capital raising works? Or I just want to make sure we really have a firm grasp as a subcommittee so that we can speak to that if and when there are questions.
So I have a general awareness of finance after working in finance for 20 years. I don't think I have the proper level of intelligence for how it works in a local town government. That I'd be a little bit out over my skis in terms of what's the legalities of certain aspects of it, in terms of how capital is raised within the municipality, what the impacts are to the taxpayers, things of that nature. It's not my domain in terms of, I'm not an expert. I have an awareness from my own personal interest in it, but I'm by no means an expert.
Yeah. So Adam is chatting with us, saying that bond counsel could attend one of our meetings with the subcommittee. So, so I think that would be a good place to start.
For expertise.
No, actually, I was going to suggest, because Adam has run us as a larger committee through a couple of kind of quick and dirty bond. This is how bonds work sessions, which I appreciated, not being the finance person in this group. But I'm wondering if after you all meet, or perhaps the PR subcommittee, we could come up with a list of questions. Maybe you guys could fill in that with some really basic answers that, as you're doing your work in a finance subcommittee, would then inform our work on the public relations end of things, if that's helpful. at all. I think it would be helpful for us. I don't know if that's a silly notion or not, but
So I see 3 hands up. I think Jeannie was first.
It looked like Michelle was trying to respond to that
Oh.
issue, so I'll let her go first, and I've got something else that I wanted to talk about, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Victoria, are you okay with Michelle? Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
I was wondering if it might be beneficial to have a separate meeting of the Finance Committee, the subcommittee of this group, and meet with Tammy St. Gelais of the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. And there's also another group that recently, that I met with recently, just because they have some funding that may be available for financing the project. And in the past, it's federal funding, and in the past, they did not have a budget large enough to consider a project of this size, but now they do. So perhaps a separate meeting that focuses just on those items, and where that subcommittee can have a complete understanding of the process and the options, and then come back to this group with some recommendations. That might be helpful in the process.
Yeah, that would be great, Michelle. Could maybe you and I can connect offline and get that meeting set up with your contacts and with the subcommittee.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, back to Jeannie and then Victoria.
So I just want to make sure, Victoria, was your comment on finance or something else?
I have a finance
thought
to throw out there to the world. When you were initially, before a few other people talked, you were saying, who do we have who we can really ask about information about the bonds? And I was just wondering if there's anyone who's on the town side of things, trustees of the trust fund or anything along those lines. Not volunteering my husband, just saying in general, if there's other people around town who would have information and be willing to support the endeavor.
Yeah, maybe we can brainstorm if folks have, people they think might be willing to volunteer their time, then that would be great. All right, Jeannie.
Okay, it's sort of along these lines of bringing in additional people for help. I've been a little concerned about the comments that I've seen on Facebook and on the master plan, about our schools and getting response to the proposed bond, that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering, especially in the case of cost and a couple other committees, if we ought to reach out and try to get additional citizens on those committees, only because some of these people, are huge naysayers, and once you bring them into the fold and they really start to participate and get an understanding, then we can turn them into advocates for us. And so it's just a thought, a way for us to get a little heads up, because we can't really have public forums at this point. But it would be really great if we could grab some of these people who may have an interest, who may be able to offer expertise, and who may then turn around and be able to help us advocate for this project.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea, great suggestion, and certainly having more voice from the community and more participation is always welcome. So, if folks have people they want to reach out to that they think would be interested, or if you want to, talk to Shannon and me after, then I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Ellen?
Just to follow up on Jeannie, that sounds like a PR committee responsibility. And so I would, if anybody has a thought to a group that the PR committee could start to think about connecting with, sort of practicing with, That would be great. So Jeannie is on the PR committee with me. So we'll, let's bring that up in our next meeting. I think it's a good idea. We kind of have a timeline, PR does, but if we need to get out in front of the noise or right behind the noise, maybe we should do that. Can somebody start recording the noise? Because I'm trying not to read the noise. So, it sounds silly, but if you see something, maybe screenshot it, not because you're going to share it and gossip about it, but because we could use it maybe efficiently, because going back to find those comments is just a nightmare. That would be great. I think Brian has a question.
Yep, go ahead, Brian.
I think that's brilliant, Ellen, around trying to capture what folks are saying, both pro, con, positive, negative, because I do think we have to be very thoughtful in terms of looking at all the different perspectives throughout the community and trying to take them head on and address them, and where it's people need additional education or greater awareness of, or where people just need to hear different perspectives. Or maybe we need to hear different perspectives and modify our actions based upon the way they've couched whatever their thoughts are. I think it needs to be proactive. I don't think it needs to be reactive in every circumstance, but awareness of what's being said and what's chattered about out there. I also don't want to be knee-jerk reacting to vocal minority. I think a lot of time can be wasted and churned when we're focused on a vocal minority that is probably of a radical state. And I don't think that tends to be highly progressive. So I do think we need to figure out what is our populist base, where is that strength coming from? And then how do we create momentum with that populist base that can help push our agendas forward? Because generally when you have a larger majority, people start to conform with what that norm is. And we need to start to create some momentum around that idea or that notion of what we're trying to do for the community.
That was a great segue into the to the next item on the agenda. PR.
Shannon, did you want to talk about that prior to the meeting that we had yesterday?
I can, however you want to do it, Amy, whatever makes sense to you.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, so I'll just do a quick update to PR, and it kind of segues and dovetails nicely with all the comments that were just made. We have a really committed group of folks working on public relations, and we just met to kind of regroup and come back together after the Amherst School Board adopted their resolution to carry on through next year. And we talked about a few things. We talked about while there was disappointment that we weren't able to move on this year for many reasons, there's also, as was stated earlier in the meeting tonight, there are some big benefits to having a longer runway in terms of really connecting with the community and just informing people. Sometimes it's not even a matter of for or against, right? It's a matter of, I have no idea what's going on in our schools because I don't go in them, or, whatever. So we talked about the need to really use March, April, and May as a time period where we are messaging the need, right? So during these months, we know that the construction cost committee is coming back together with additional eyes on the project costs. We know that our project will still be a new school and for the elementary and a middle school renovation, but those costs are still being refined. So really spending the spring exploring ways to message the need. And one of the big things that came out of our meeting was an idea, and I believe it was Brian's, of having office hours where members of the JFAC committee hold kind of like a public comment time, but just some office hours around specific topics. So, if you want to learn more about what the Joint Facilities Advisory Committee, the work we've done on, whichever portion of the project, come to our open office hours, and there will be, 3 members from the committee. So we discussed beginning that in April. So we will regroup as a PR subcommittee and work out the details, and then be reaching out to all of you to support us in those efforts. We also talked about the need to really finalize a calendar. So Victoria Parisi took on, raised her hand to kind of help with this. But building out a spreadsheet that's every item, every mailer, every, Facebook posting, website updates, who's going to own it, and really starting to schedule those out. We discussed June as a potential voting day, as a potential day to maybe begin the campaign, information campaign, right? Doing it earlier than that could confuse voters, right? If you're pushing some information or direct mailers to folks home right before a vote in June for something that's happening in March, that's confusing. So waiting until after June. So kind of eyeballing voting day as sort of a launch date, but also 4th of July was mentioned as a big date that is also a big opportunity. So I think I don't think I left anything out, but if I did, that's super important. If anyone who was on that call could chime in, that would be great. Yep. Okay, super. So that's our update. Really, we're focused on how can we engage stakeholder groups in a variety of ways.
That's great. And yeah, thank you, Victoria, for taking on that project management challenge. Appreciate it. Okay, so
Amy,
yeah.
I did have my hand raised that time.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Nothing to, don't apologize. No
I have a
apologies.
tiny little screen tonight.
There's
Go
no
ahead.
sorries in Zoom. So I would encourage, and I'm happy to help out with the PR committee. Some of the cat is out of the bag, and it's not the cute parts about this whole bond in our plan. And so people, and Shannon, you've been really good on Facebook. Some people are really talking about it already. And I was like, no, they're planning on meeting with people. This is the thing. Here's the link to the website. Here's the thing. So I would hesitate to wait too long because, people are reactive and they hear $98 million and that's it. Like the doors closed, they're not going to hear anything. But if we can maybe start saying, hey, be looking for this meeting at the library or this Zoom meeting on this day, just to give people they're not listening to us. No, we will kind of thing. Maybe a little sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, that's feedback that we also had within the subcommittee, Lisa. So I think you're on point there. Ellen, I see your hand. I didn't mean to jump in.
No, that's okay, Shannon. I just want to comment. Lisa's right, and we all know that on our town social media page, it takes on a life of its own. I do want to remind everybody that if we start putting information out too early before our actual voting, I think it's going to be confusing for people. So I think we do need to be careful of that. But Lisa, you won't be surprised. I want to jump on your offer in the beginning of that because you're very active on the page and I'm not as active on the page. I don't see a lot of this. I only hear about it later and then I try to go back and find it and I can't find it. So would you be willing to kind of help us with that? I think it's a great, it's a job unto itself to kind of manage the climate on Facebook. And you can, if I've been in situations where other people will shoot me a text and say, hey, you should jump on right now, or a response is needed. We may be that flexible, but we may also be able to kind of review the comments and then come back after.
Right.
So could you capture that for us?
Yes, maybe. Yes, I'm sure I can figure that out. And I have been doing that, moderating that already. And there's times I, will tag Shannon or something like that. Yeah, I'm not saying that the full-blown PR campaign should start sooner rather than later, but like some teasers, put the trailer out.
I think it's a good idea, Lisa. And I think the message right now really is that, this is still a commitment on the part of the Amherst School District. But they have decided that, it makes sense to wait another year, even though there will be some costs, potentially escalation costs to bear, but they want to make sure that citizens are fully informed. They want to allow that time. and they're reviewing the cost again to make sure, because they're, you know, they are saying, they are hearing, to make sure that they're right. And so, yeah, I think what we need to do is kind of get our act together slightly in terms of these office hours. We won't be talking financing in these early office hours. We'll be talking need. We'll be talking about what brought us together, what brought us to this point, because that's what we can that's what we can very clearly articulate right now, because we're still in a stage where we're refining cost to the, you know, we're not going to go up. I can assure you that, right? Like, if the costs, they're either going to stay what they are. Well, okay, they might go up because of construction escalation.
Right.
But in terms of, you know, the scope of the project, we're not making it any bigger in scope, right? So we're looking
Lance is like, no.
yeah, right. But so, you know, I guess, I mean, I think you're right that we need to be talking with folks. I think what we want to talk with folks about is going to evolve over time.
Yeah.
So right now we're at a place where, you know, we've done so much homework, so much research in terms of the need and what's going on in our buildings. And those will be the first meetings. But yeah, we'll get together in March and we'll make sure we get something out there. So as you're moderating, you can have, you know, something to point people to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
All right, I see Jeannie's virtual hand and I see Brian's real hand.
I'll be quick.
Okay.
I think Lisa has pointed to something really important, and I wanted to let her know that I really appreciated the fact that she has been guiding people over to the website and things like that. I really appreciate that. The one thing that sort of comes to mind is that we all know what happened. We know that the Amherst School Board decided not to do it this year and the reasons they chose not to, but they haven't really, except for in a meeting, which not everybody attends, they haven't really put something out that sort of encapsulates that and lets everybody know that, you know, we're the JFAC committee is, and they are working together and to come up with, you know, a proposal that will be brought forth in March. There's nothing, I haven't ever seen anything like that. So maybe it's really the responsibility of the Amherst School Board to put out something that explains, so that, I mean, it really shouldn't be our job. Our job is to, you know, obviously to make this proposal a reality, but right now we need somebody from that group to really explain where we are now. Because when you don't have information, what you create is like this rumor mill and crazy comments.
Yeah, and I'll let Tom and Ellen talk about that, but I know it's something that we did talk about, and I think they have plans to address it in deliberative and some a letter to the citizen and some other avenues, but I'll let Tom and Ellen speak to that directly.
Yeah, Tom did an editorial. I think that just came out, right, Tom? Is it the February edition?
It was in the February edition of the Citizen. So we did it in there explaining why we didn't do it, what we're going to be doing next. We'll be talking about it at our next meeting as well. So we will have the avenues that we have available to us, we will be utilizing, and we have utilized so far.
And again, I would just comment, I've maybe mentioned this before and Brian has mentioned it. I'm not going to have a knee-jerk reaction because of some fear-based publicity. I want to be really methodical about our plan moving forward. And I think things can get a little messy when you're jumping on and you don't have all the right information. So, you know, we had a huge hiccup. We're just coming back from that with a plan. So I would just remind everybody, you know, we got it going on.
Yeah, and I see Shannon just posted, which is a great comment. We can post the editorial on Facebook and on the website. So just to have that clear information put out to the community. So thank you, Tom, for doing that. I have to say, I felt really positive after the Amherst School Board meeting, feeling like they really are with us and are ready to dive in this year and be part of it and also be, you know, be a strong voice in the community. So your point is well taken, Jeannie, but I definitely think that is the path that we're on. All right, Brian.
I just wanted to reemphasize, and Lisa, please don't take this as picking, but I think one of the phrases you said, it just stuck with you. It's like the cat's out of the bag. That was the phrase.
Right.
And I'm kind of like,
What?
good Lord, the cat's been out of the bag for 2.5 years.
I know.
I
know.
I guess there's a narrative out there that people are like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I've never
Right.
heard of this. It's been presented at deliberative. It's presented at the town meeting. It's been, it was put on a warrant article 2 years ago. We've talked about this ad nauseum throughout the community.
And
yeah, I just
I
think,
know, and people's response is still like, there's something shady going on. They're trying to pull one over on us. We don't need a school. So we're clearly not hitting the people that, it's like the parents know, but those who don't have kids and are far removed aren't getting the message that there's structural huge problems.
I think we have to have, and this is going to sound terrible, and you all know I don't filter much.
Don't hold back, Brian.
Unfortunately, this is happening during a period of COVID and social distancing and all this gobbledygook. But I swear to God, we have to have like an open house of the dang schools to give the community a tour and point out to them, like, see that thing over there that's falling apart? Like, see these locker rooms that these kids go into that like don't have heat? Do you see this ceiling fan thing that's about to fall off? Come in February and go to this room. This room's 98 degrees and this room's 52. And the community, if you really give a hoot about the community, you gotta show up. And if you don't show up to these basic things to become educated, then you really don't seem to care about the community. But like, if you actually walk the hallways, and Roger, please, you did a hell of a job to keep everything to the status that it is. But we've been putting chewing gum and duct tape and string around these things for decades. And we've got devices that he can't even find parts for. Like, how bonkers is that? Like, you've got to make in like machine shop parts to fix the things that break down. Like, you wouldn't have that in your house, but you'll send your kid or your neighbor's kid there. Like, that's the community that we want to like raise people in. Like, I don't understand what the rationale is. And I just think people are just, maybe we've been in our houses too long that we don't want to walk outside and take in the concept of reality of like, we're in a pretty dire strait. And thankfully, we're not putting children in an unsafe environment yet, but give it time and you will.
Right.
No, Brian, I think it's a good point. And I think, once you start really digging into public school infrastructure, it's not an Amherst problem, it's a nationwide problem.
Right.
So, I want to be really careful when we're talking about this because, this is a problem everywhere. I think we have a real opportunity right now as a community to educate people, to help them understand, to help them get in the buildings. We have a virtual tour. Hopefully at some point, we're going to be able to let people come back in the buildings and it's, life's going to return to normal. But there's a lot of work to do on our part. And it's not just an Amherst problem, it's an everywhere problem. But that's why we're all here and committed, right? So.
Thank you. Stephanie.
I'll just be really quick. I think the idea that people haven't seen what's going on in the school buildings is a big problem. We'll say the retirees haven't seen it, so therefore it doesn't exist. And I think there's a lot of parents who are so distracted, especially this year, just with the hybrid teaching, schedules changing, just all the Zooming, everything else that this has lost focus. So I think any idea that we can try and get some sort of tours or people in the building to actually see it is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, we do have our work cut out for us given the environment and some obstacles, and that it's a big deal. I mean, this is a huge deal for our small New Hampshire community. So I think definitely the more we can be calculated in getting the message out in every avenue that's open to us, the better we'll be. Okay, so before we move on to a discussion of Clark School, because I know that is something we definitely need to address. I had a conversation with Adam, and he suggested that a couple of us get together to really talk about the next phase of our work to get prepared for what's to come this year, and hopefully prepare for the if the bond should pass. So Shannon and Roger and Beth Kuzma, the chair of the Amherst board, myself met with Adam to talk about really what we need to do now to get some work done to further refine the project that we're looking at, and also to be prepared to execute for next year. So what he suggested is that we start looking at putting out an RFP for the architect. And I know Lance and Ann are on here, and it's awkward, but it is something that we need to do, which I know you understand. So we would like to get that process started. We talked about potentially having site and civil engineering come underneath that. We also need to look at hiring construction manager and owner's project manager. So, you know, obviously we don't have a lot of money to spend, but we need to start looking at securing these folks. We do have some budget left from the $150,000 that was passed, so we could have some initial work that could be done. So I'm going to stop there and ask some of my other fellow committee or members who are at that meeting to chime in. I know Adam is working behind the scenes, but Roger, I know you have experience in this, so wondering if you could fill in some of the blanks that I might have missed in this process.
I think you spoke to it really well. The next steps that we're working on here is we're looking at, as you mentioned, we're looking.
Roger, could you turn up your volume, please?
Sure, John, I'll do my best on my end.
That's better, thank you.
Perfect, perfect. So as you mentioned, we have 4 RFPs that we want to send out. We're concentrating on the architectural, and we're looking to do the site and civil at the same time. Our proposed publish for this is we look to have it published by April, back by May, and interviews during May, and hopefully a decision made by June is the proposed timeline. Need to work on the little details of that a little bit further. And then ideally we'll work with the architect that's selected on a construction manager RFP to go out there as well. And then eventually we'll get to an owner's project manager to kind of help us support the project and offer some savings as well.
So yeah, we just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. And, you know, we met as a small, I guess, subcommittee, but we would be looking to expand that as we move forward. But just wanted to bring you all into that conversation. We do have had someone from the Amherst School Board, myself and Shannon and Roger and Adam. Adam, did you have anything to add on that process?
No, you summarized it well. The point is we want to make sure that when this bond passes next March, we don't have to delay any time putting the team together. That will be a part of the process. And so those 4 prime contractors, an architect, a site and civil engineer, a construction manager, and an owner's project manager. We want to get all 4 of those identified, have contracts buttoned up and hired. And then we also spoke about with the remaining dollars, the 2 things that we thought we would likely want to expend for those with those dollars would be an updated construction cost estimate if need be, and then doing some of the site and civil engineering work and or geotechnical studies so that we can validate the site for the Wilkins project can support the site, because those questions are often, if they're unanswered before we get major approval, they can be stumbling blocks to getting the formal approval from the town. Those are the.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. So really the idea is to, you know, do some of this prep work now so that we save some headaches later and we have things identified if we have any big issues, and have things lined up and buttoned up. We're not, obviously we have a budget, so have to stay within that, but want to at least start the process on this. I think I saw Ellen and then Victoria.
Thanks, Amy. Excuse my being a little naive. Is this like a starting all over? So if we have another architect, are we looking at all new design and everything?
No. So Lance and Ann were hired to do this initial drawings and work and all of the work that they did, but those belong to us, whether LaValle Brenziger is chosen as the architect for the project or not.
Got it.
So like I said, it was a little awkward with Lance and Ann, but they're used to this.
Well, Amy, can I say something about that?
Yeah, sure.
I think to that point, I would expect that our community would expect us to have a competitive selection process for the architect. This is a several $1 million design fee. And so we certainly could say to Lance and LaValle Brenziger that you're the design firm, but I think most people in our community would expect that we at least see what the market is like and make sure we have a competitive price. So that's really the why we need to go through this process, Ellen.
Thanks, Adam. Victoria.
I was just going to be kind of chiming in right along where Ellen and Adam were. These were the steps that we thought we were going to be getting to at some point. So I'm really glad to see that we're getting to them now. We're getting them to them this spring and we're not waiting, which is really, really exciting. Even though we've changed our timeline a little bit, it's still moving us forward. So it's great to see.
Yep. Progress. Okay. So I know Clark School has sort of been the elephant in the room for a while, and I didn't feel like we necessarily had a lot of time to delve into it, but we do have some more time now and it has to be addressed. So I'm not sure if we want to have a bit of a conversation about it now, or if, I think it definitely warrants another subcommittee, I hate to say it, but a group of folks who are dedicated to looking at, what do we, the $1 million question, what do we do about Clark? So, I know that this PR subcommittee had some conversations about it. Shannon, do you want to just sort of start us off? And then I think I would suggest that we form another committee to do some work on that.
Sure. From a communicating with residents standpoint, obviously public relations has been discussing one of the first 5 questions that we're going to get is, well, what's happening to Clark School? While we, the Joint Facilities Advisory Committee, aren't necessarily the folks who make the final decision, we certainly need to be able to speak to what some of the options are. Obviously, everyone on the committee had, various ideas about ways that Clark could be used. The town has an interest in looking at green space. So, do we, does part of Clark go away? Do we keep the original building? Does it become a community center? Those aren't questions that we had answers to, but lots of ideas. So I think a subcommittee is a great idea. I think understanding, we talked about, well, have we had Clark appraised? What would it, what is it worth? What would it look like if we demoed Clark? What would it look like to give the town Clark? Do they have an interest? So I think a subcommittee to explore that soon would be great. I don't know, if that's an opportunity to pull more folks from the community in to reach a hand across the aisle to the town. I don't really have all of those answers, but certainly being able to at least present some options to people would be a great place to start. So if there's a group willing to dig into that, I think it would be a really worthy subcommittee to set up. And that's, I think, where we landed when we discussed it mostly.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Tom, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it was just an add-on to what Shannon said in terms of getting that building appraised, but also knowing what that building can be used for if a private buyer did come in to do it. Could it be, just to throw ideas out there, could it be a restaurant? Could it be a senior housing complex? What can that property actually be used for? I don't know the answer, but I think it's good to clarify what that is, because that's certainly going to affect the appraisal. And certainly if it was something that we wanted to try to sell as an idea, what it can actually be turned into before somebody buys it. So.
Well, I know we don't have anyone on the zoning board, but we have someone on the planning board on our committee. So.
I don't know what the hell it can be used.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I'm sure there's some pretty strict guidelines. I don't know, Jeannie, you live in the village. Victoria, you live in the village.
I was going to say the village people
Yeah.
probably would not be thrilled with certain ideas about using Clark School. I mean, it'd be great to have a restaurant in town, but I just can't imagine. We have to remember that the village is primarily residential, and people always seem to forget that. And so you're, obviously having something that's, if you had a restaurant, it would impinge on people who are really literally feet away from that property. So my inclination, and I don't get to decide this, is that it would be a great asset for the community in many different ways, whether it's a community center, maybe the children's library gets moved there, offices that, from various locations, whether it be from the town hall, could move there, all kinds of things. So I think that would be a better way to go, just because of low impact and less controversial, and people would support it because they would benefit from it.
Yeah, all good points. Stephanie, I saw your hand.
Yeah, if we form a subcommittee, I would say we need to go knock on the doors of people who live across the street from Clark and see if someone wants the subcommittee, because we're going to need their buy-in potentially.
Yeah, no, I think that's, so yeah, and I didn't want to spend too much time because we could probably go on and on, but I guess I'd be looking for someone who wants to head up that committee, and, maybe they can reach out and find some other volunteers, and I agree. I think this would be a good opportunity to look to the wider community for participation. So I know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Christine Grayson is not able to log into Voice, but she's watching, and she's willing to be a part of the Clark subcommittee, she has said. So I don't know if she's offering to lead it, so I don't want to offer that up of her, but she's definitely willing to be a part of it.
Okay. Yeah, I would say she would be a fabulous chair if she's willing. So maybe you can talk to her about that. Okay. And then before we can wrap it up and just go over what our next steps are that came out of this meeting. Stephanie, you guys probably haven't done anything on Sohegan for next year, but I just wanted to give the opportunity to speak to that.
No, I think we were waiting for, honestly, budgets to kind of settle down a bit before we try and reach out to Mike to talk about the science and what his plans are. Because I know he's probably buried, but we'll get to it.
That's fine. Yeah, that was my assumption. I just didn't want to leave it off. Okay, so for next steps, I see we have the cost committee meeting next week. We'll hopefully do some hard work and further refine and maybe even get the budget down. Finance committee, we're going to set up a meeting with some contacts that Michelle has to start to really understand. And I was intrigued when she was talking about potential funding sources. That would be pretty exciting to learn about. PR, you have a whole list of activities that are ongoing, the website, office hours, looking at managing social media and pushing out other communication to the community. I think bringing in community members into our fold would be, oh, Christine does not wish to chair. Okay, boo hiss. But thank you for volunteering, Christine. I guess big news is having the Amherst School Board, really being fully immersed with us and, leading the dialogue out in the community as well. And we will look to ping someone to chair the Clark School Subcommittee. Before we go, I know Lance and Ann are here. Did you have anything that you needed to share with us before we close out?
No, we just tuned in to kind of keep up to speed on it and see if there's anything you needed from us.
Okay.
I mean, obviously we know as you guys know, we're at the end of our contract, but we wanted to stay current, keep aware of things. We are joining Roger for the meeting next week, along with Harvey Construction's going to volunteer some time there to kind of justify where we are with the estimate.
Thank you.
Just keep us informed. I know you've got the formal hiring process in front of you, which we'll be obviously interested in partaking on.
Yep. So we'll, and yes, thank you for reminding me of that. So we'll certainly have more information on where we stand with that process at the next JFAC meeting. Anything else? Anything I missed? Any comments from anyone? Yep, go ahead, Brian.
Yes, apparently my email and whatever the school email is, I have like 5 more meetings on my calendar for today. Is there a 6 o'clock meeting also? Or is
There's
it just this meeting?
SAU board meeting. It probably was originally at 6 and we bumped it to 5 because of the board meeting, I'm guessing. Is that right, Adam? Yeah.
So I don't have to go to 5 more of these meetings tonight?
No, not tonight.
Okay. My kids
Don't worry, there'll be a PR meeting in your future here real soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, thank you everybody for all of your hard work and time. And I know we have a lot of work ahead of us till we meet again, but let me know anything in the meantime. And oh, Brian, he's got Bernie behind him. And we'll certainly make sure we keep Slack up to date as well as we go forward. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.